Welcome to the Hair Loss Show. Russell Knudsen and Dr. Vikram Jayaprakash discuss issues relating to hair loss and the medical and surgical treatment of hair loss in both men and women.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the Hair Loss Show, episode number 34. My name is Dr. Vikram Jayaprakash.
I'm Dr. Russell Knudsen. Welcome.
Right, well, today's topic, this one is we've had a lot of requests for. A lot of people have asked about this. Our podcast on finasteride and side effects of finasteride have been very, very popular. But today we're going to talk about the topical version of finasteride and just a little bit about that as well.
Okay, so finasteride for orally to treat hair loss was released in the US in 1997. So to put that in context, we basically have 23 years of experience with it. We know there have been patients with side effects. We see them in our own practice. And we've discussed it in detail in other podcasts. So if you want more depth about oral finasteride, go and have a look at those. For example, episode number 4 is devoted to the side effects of finasteride. But in recent couple of years, people have started using topical finasteride, and the theory behind topical finasteride is that if you only apply it locally to the area, you should keep the effect relatively local and therefore lessen the risk of getting side effects. Now, let me put this back in context. The original theory behind using finasteride and using it orally rather than topically like minoxidil was that the 5-alpha reductase enzymes also exist in the liver. And so if you are converting testosterone to DHT in the liver and the blood supply from the liver is going through your scalp, you're delivering DHT to the scalp. So the original philosophy was you take the tablet orally so that you could block the enzyme in the liver as well and make sure that the DHT, the less amount of DHT was being delivered to the susceptible hair follicles.
So basically just going through that, again, testosterone gets converted into dihydrotestosterone or DHT, and then there's the 5-alpha reductase enzyme that causes the conversion. And so if you have a lot of that in the system, or certainly a lot of that at the level of the hair follicle, then it causes the hairs to miniaturize and fall out, and that's what causes male hair loss.
And let's just remind people that it's a partial block of the enzyme.
Yes.
It lowers DHT by about 2/3. Okay, so it doesn't knock it completely out. It lowers it by 2/3. But because of people either getting side effects from using it orally or being worried about getting side effects from using it orally, the theory was if we use topical finasteride, we could avoid the side effects but get the effect. So this has been, there's been a bit of research being done on this in the last few years. And the dosing percentages for finasteride topically applied typically are around about 0.1%, but in some cases 0.25%. So the idea is to use a low dose, again, on a daily basis, topically to the thinning area. There's no point being on a bald area, that's not going to work. Put it on a thinning area and see if you can get the effect without the side effect. There's a bit of dispute at the moment about whether it really does abolish the side effects, because it appears that there are some patients who are even susceptible with low dose topical finasteride to get the side effects. So I think that if my general feeling is I would prefer patients to be on it than not. If they won't contemplate doing it orally, I'm happy to prescribe it in a topical formulation, but I don't promise them that there's no risk of side effects. We're still going to find out whether that's going to be something that's going to work for them.
So the other thing to mention is that unlike finasteride, which is, you can get generic forms, etc., topical finasteride needs to be compounded. So you need
and
to
it needs to be compounded properly, which
yes.
means that you have to go to someone who's experienced at the compounding to make sure that you've got a stable solution, a reproducible solution that you could use going forward. So yes, it's a variation that we can use. As I said, if the patient really doesn't want to use oral, I'm going to go to topical. But I don't think that topical is my first choice for most patients.
No, that's right. So generally speaking, we would start people on a oral version of the finasteride and see how they got on, and if they, were concerned about side effects or were experiencing side effects and really had this inclination to switch to a topical version, then we could get that compounded and trialing that and seeing. But as you said, we've had people on on a small dose, 0.25% finasteride that are getting side effects with that. So it is about titrating, much like with the oral dose. You got to titrate to find what is that minimum effective dose that is going to lower that level enough, but you're not getting the side effects associated with that.
Okay, so hopefully some more research will be performed over the next couple of years, and we'll be able to report back to you with some controlled studies rather than anecdotal studies. An anecdotal study means, Joe tried it and it worked. That's not a scientific study. So hopefully we'll have some scientific studies performed in the next couple of years that we can report on to you. Thanks again very much for watching. I hope this has helped explain the current interest in topical finasteride, and we look forward to talking to you next time.
See you next time. Thank you very much.
Bye.